Um, this will be recorded. So, welcome to Highline Reads. Do I look at the owl or do I look at?
You're good.
Okay.
Stuff.
Okay. I'm Jerry Ventura, the library director, unused to the owl. In the chat, librarians Monica, Allison, and Karen will be handling tech support. And so we all thank you for coming to Highline Reads. This is our library's guest reader program on different topics for the Highline community. Today is our first Highline Reads event this academic year, isn't it?
This quarter.
This quarter.
For
With
2023.
Oh, is it number 3?
For 2023.
Oh, Joshua read last quarter. Sorry, Joshua. With our esteemed college president, Dr. John Mosby. So we are reporting. Dr. Mosby serves as the 7th president of Highline College. He is the first person of color to hold the position as president and has more than 26 years of higher education experience. I know that Dr. Mosby likes sunshine and enjoys reading for fun and also for personal enrichment. And one of his favorite authors is James Baldwin. Please stay after the recorded reading for an off-camera and candid discussion if you would like. So a few housekeeping notes. There are live automated captions available. Click on the show captions button at the bottom of your screen to view subtitles. You can also click to view the full transcript so you can see what was said earlier. If you'd rather not see the captions, you can also turn them off by selecting hide captions. Before we start this library program, we'd like to share a land acknowledgement. We'd like to recognize the Indigenous people whose land we are on today. Highline College itself, where many of us live and work, resides on ancestral native lands of the Duwamish Nation. And depending on exact cities in this region, many of us live and work on the Muckleshoot, Duwamish, and Puyallup Nations Indigenous lands. We honor the land and give gratitude to the First Nations people that are here who continue to steward this land since time immemorial. To learn more about native land, there's a link in the chat about native land map. We also encourage you to learn more about the Indigenous studies through our library resource guide, also in the chat. This guide includes books, ebooks, websites, and you can reach out to us anytime for additional suggestions you might have to add to this guide. And if you're able, we also encourage you to consider taking action to show solidarity by donating to a cause such as Real Rent Duwamish. Further, we respectfully acknowledge the enslaved people, primarily of African descent, who provided exploited labor on which this country was built with little to no recognition. Today, we are indebted to their labor and the labor of many Black and brown bodies that continue to work in the shadows for our collective benefit. We encourage you to learn more about Black studies on our library resource guide in the chat. So thank you all. Without further ado, I'm thrilled to introduce Dr. John Mosby, our college president, who will be reading Clarity and Connection excerpts by Young Pueblo. This book was published by Andrews McNeil Publishing 2021. Please stay for an optional brief discussion afterwards. And so get comfortable, everyone, and welcome Dr. John R. Mosby.
Thank you. Well, and I realized that I have to go after Josh, so I got some pressure. So hi, Josh, good to see you. So I'm gonna try to do my best to, to do well, because I know he did well. I want to take a moment and thank the library folks for inviting me. I was like, oh, that was really cool. I was really excited and running around my office and just really, really excited and glad I could make it work. So I appreciate you taking the time. And that actually means a lot. So often as president, you don't have these kind of opportunities and spaces as much as you want. So I really do appreciate that. And also for the people here and for the people virtually here. So if I could just take a moment before starting to read to kind of talk about why I picked this book. As Jared had said earlier, I'm a big James Baldwin fan, and James Baldwin changed my life I became an English major because of James Baldwin. I studied under an individual who studied under him. I reread his books every year to provide clarity for me in many ways. And I was thinking about doing Baldwin. And I was reflecting back on the past 3 or 4 years in my life with COVID that's still continuing, with the loss of my father, with my own health challenges, with family stuff, relationships with alive parents, parents who aren't here. And it has been a interesting few years of just kind of growth for me and trying to kind of figure out who I am and reinvent myself in many ways, while still maintaining my kind of moral and ethical character. And I was given this as a gift from a very good friend of mine. And I went home after the dinner and read half the book that evening. And I just felt like this person was talking to me, the Pueblo was talking to me. And so I said, well, this is, I think, is something I think a lot of people could relate to in many ways, or be able to talk about. So I wanted to bring that book here and share it again. I really appreciate the opportunity. In this book, there are 5 sections, and I have some excerpts from each section. We'll see how we do for time. But in the book is called Clarity and Connection by young Pueblo. The contents are 5 chapters: self-awareness, unbinding, the love between us, growing, and a new life. The love between us is a section that I have not yet been able to read, because it's about relationships, and that always, loving relationships and partnering relationships, and that always gives me pause and conflict. So my growth is also to read that at some point. So I've read the other chapters. Relationships and I they've always been sitcom episodes, because you're like, there's a train wreck, Mosby's in it. So we have some time. But I wanted to start with, I kind of marked up this book in one way or the other, but I want to start with reading a couple. And if people have questions or comments, if folks that are in the chat or people that are monitoring the chat can just stop me and ask. And I'd also like this just to be a conversation as well throughout. But I will start. The biggest shift in your life happens when you go inward. You step in and observe all that you find with acceptance. The love you bring lights up your self-awareness. You start seeing how the past is packed into your mind and heart. Patience, honesty, and observation start the healing process. With time, intention, and good healing practices, the past loses its power over your life. You continue the process, stepping in, feeling, understanding, and letting go. And then you start noticing the results. You are not the same anymore. Your mind feels lighter and develops a new, sharper clarity. You start arriving into your life and relationships ready for deeper connection. So this is one that was one that kind of hit home for me, especially after my health incident a few years ago. After the trauma, I shifted into survival mode. Unknowingly, I shielded my being with numbness, numb to letting others in, numb to my inner turmoil, numb to accepting what happened. Unknowingly, into a cycle of craving, craving safety, craving nourishment, craving no more pain. My reactions were large and loud. Anything that go my way was perceived as a potential threat. My focus centered on protecting my delicate sense of self. I had little energy to place myself in anyone else's shoes. It took the constant feeling of dissatisfaction and the exhaustion of never feeling at ease for me to start pulling myself out of my dissociated way of living and finally saying enough to a constant state of defense. So I guess I would say with that, I think we all struggle in one way or the other with things and how we perceive ourselves. And I like to be, I strive to be this perfectionist, which is completely unrealistic. And I'm the first one to offer help to someone, but I do not like asking for help. And in the past few years, I've had to humble myself and ask for help. I had to ask for help in the hospital when I had to get bathed by the nurse, which was very humbling. I had to ask for help when I had 2 months of leave and I was recovering at home, and they said, you got to have somebody there at the house with you. It was hard to ask. And I would go up the stairs, and especially when I got out, my good friend who was staying with me, when I went up the stairs, he went up the stairs. When I went down the stairs, he went down the stairs, because I was learning how to walk all over again. He was scared I was going to fall. Very humbling. I'm in control of myself, or so we think, right? And then when you're not able to be perfect, or when something doesn't go your way, you retreat. And I think what resonated with me here was this inner turmoil that I'm numb to, but yet the numbness really controls me, and it's the power. Point where you're like, I gotta say enough, right? Finally, I gotta say. Me, it was if I don't say enough, and I don't make changes, I'm not going to be here on this planet much longer. It is not easy, but the idea is simple. The more we heal our own wounds, the less likely we will be to cause intentional or intentional harm. Perfection is not possible on the interpersonal level. Our individual perception and changing emotions will occasionally cause misunderstanding and accidental pain. But if we can show up for each other compassionately, then we can remedy the hurt that needs tending. We often hand our attention over to others without understanding that it wasn't ours to begin with. Someone passed it to us. And so we pass it to the next person, and they to the next, until it lands in the hands of someone with the tools to process it and let it go. The more of us who are open to inner work, the more points there will be in the giant web of humanity where harm will not be able to spread. The self-awareness needed to stop causing ourselves and others harm is not just about knowing our own inner mechanics, our trauma, the moments when we are projecting, or how our reactions impact our perceptions. It is also about taking the time to understand what society has encoded in our minds without our explicit permission. People are incredibly similar and different at the same time. We all have the same basic structure of minds and emotions, but we have distinct mental conditioning because no two people have experienced the same exact life, the twists and turns, the reactions we have felt, the things we have understood and misunderstood, all that we have come to believe, how we perceive ourselves in the world, the maze of patterns that impact our behavior, the different magnitudes of trauma. You can go on and see that each individual has their own inner world and unique emotional history. Since we are all so different, what helps one person heal may not help another person. What may seem too hard or too easy for some people may be a good fit for someone else, or may be the right fit later on in life. Fortunately, we live in a time where healing tools and practices are becoming more accessible. If we try, we can find something out there that meets our conditioning where it is at. Something that we find challenging but not overwhelming, something that connects with our intuition, something that we are willing to spend time learning and practicing. There are so many options out there, from many different forms of mediation to a wide variety of therapy practices and many other healing modalities. It is not about faking calm when. So I have always appreciated counseling and therapy. I have been in that. I have been a participant in that. When I was in grad school, when I was getting my master's, they were saying, you should go to therapy. You should experience that. I've always kind of gravitated towards that because of family relationships and drama, because you always got drama with family, right? And how to navigate that. Also, younger self-esteem issues, also what it is to be a Black man in America, in this world. And most recently with the death of my father, with my health issues, with COVID that I think brought depression to me, because we're all at home and all you see is this up, and I'm broken and I'm miserable and I haven't been able to deal with things. And, you know, in the past year and a half, been able to do therapy and go through, especially after my medical incident, to actually kind of embrace the changes that are now part of my life and not take it as being guilty or feeling guilty or that I failed. You know, the idea of failure and feeling like there is nowhere to go is so powerful. And it's more powerful than I think a lot of people give it credit for, because there's nothing worse than feeling powerless and alone. And you know, when you cry those tears, there's tears you cry, and then you know, when you cry those hard tears, those tears that take everything out, like you're tired after crying, you know. And what I loved about this piece was that it was about hope. It was about looking at options. It's about recognizing. I just think about, when I read this, I think about our wonderful counselors that we have here. And I would say this if they weren't in the virtual room, but I have always in my career and worked directly with them and have appreciated them. And I've also utilized those services from their colleagues and be able to utilize those talents that also kind of give me hope. And then also that I can model that, because I'm not ashamed to say that I've done therapy. I'm not ashamed to say that I've had counseling. I'm actually very proud of that, because I wouldn't be where I am today if I didn't use that, but if I didn't trust folks and realize that I deserve better. It sometimes feels as though time has helped us heal, but all it has really done is teach us to live with the wound. Just because we have stopped thinking about the harm of the past does not mean it is fully healed. The passing of time allows what was first on a conscious level to sink deeper into the mind, where it becomes a quiet yet powerful lever, that forces us to behave a certain way. Underneath our conscious thoughts remains the impact of a harmful yesterday. Healing requires moving inward with patience, honesty, and courage. If we do not address our accumulated subconscious patterns, they will simply remain there, always affecting how we think, speak, and act. Our accumulated wounds and conditioning will restrict our flexibility and cause us to get stuck in a loop that continues repeating the past. So this one reminded me a lot of when my father passed. My father passed suddenly. He had been sick. He had been diagnosed with stage 4 lung cancer and was given 1.5 years to live. He ended up doing chemotherapy for 3 months, decided that if things weren't going to get any better after stuff, he was going to stop chemotherapy. So they ran, and he gave me a warning, gave me a heads up. He's like, I'm not going to continue chemotherapy if the tests come back and there's no change. So I was like, okay, I hear what he's saying. So the test came back, and actually the cancer has spread. So on Tuesday, right before executive cabinet meeting, I got a call from my parents saying that he was going to discontinue treatment. And again, this was 3-4 months after the initial diagnosis. They had met with some people to do kind of palliative care that came in over the weekend. Sunday, I was here, and I called my parents and I talked to them. And my sister, my younger sister, lives in Los Angeles, and she called and talked with them. And then my stepsister, which is my father's daughter from a previous marriage, who lives 10 minutes away, she came over. So I think at 10 o'clock at night, I got off the phone and everybody had a good conversation. And then at 12:30 a.m., my mom called and said he was gone. He got up to go to the restroom. He was fine. He was walking around. He got up to go to the restroom. He was in the restroom, the bathroom.
He asked my mom, can you come and help me? Because I'm a little weak. By the time she made it to the bathroom, he was gone. His head was in his lap. But he got to talk to his kids. You know, that's the one thing that's kind of helped us in some ways. But, you know, all three kids for a long period of time. And, you know, as I said before, we all got struggles in our family. So that was one of the few moments where all the kids were together. So I think about this in this particular piece. Sometimes the end is sudden and you were left without closure, heartbroken and unprepared for such a sharp change. For a while, you live with the mind that is half here and half full of regret, wondering what if. For a while, your heart only feels grief and your mind only sees gray. And then life starts to call you back into its area of possibility. It would remind you that all is not lost, and that even through a chapter ended, there is still a longer story to be told. With time and intention, wounds lose their heaviness. Healing fills the tough parts of your being, and you awaken the light of love within yourself. In time, you will return fully into the precious, now with a heart that feels refreshed and ready to move forward. So I think about my mom in particular with this. I think about myself and our family, but I think about my mom because my mom and my father truly loved each other, the best of friends, and they did everything together. And I didn't really know that. And I made a copy of this poem and sent it to my mom because I remember, on a side note, I remember being at the house when he passed. We were working virtually, so I was able to be in California for 2 months. Still working, but being able to be there. And I remember I was taking out the dishes from the dishwasher, and my mom was standing there and she just broke down. And I asked her why. I said, well, not why, but I'm like, what's wrong? You know, are you okay? You know, when mom cries, it's hard. I don't know about y'all, but when my mom cries, I can't handle it. It's actually with my sister and even women in my family cry, I can't do it. I can't do it. So, and I'm like, what's going on? What's going on? And she had said, your dad and I used to take the dishes out of the dishwashers together. He was much taller than her. She would rinse them out and he would put them away. And then I realized right there that they did everything together. Such a small task that might be meaningless to others was love for them. It was a partnership. And that's one of my lasting memories with my parents, you know, and the stories and, you know, and now when I take the dishes out of the dishwasher, it has a little bit of a different meaning because for my mom, that was everything. And that's the part, that's what I'm going to miss most is that stuff every day because you're left without closure. We thought 18 months, it was 4, right?
You're good.
It is easier to let go of someone's opinion of you when you understand that others see you through a combination of their past conditioning and their current emotional state without realizing it. They see themselves first, and through that lens, they get an unclear picture of you. I have to reread this one over and over and over again, because for so long in my life, it was so important about what opinion someone had of me meant. For so long, until I got into administration and realized you can't really worry about that anymore. I had some mentors say, oh, you know, you're not gonna be everybody's BFF, but you know, I came from such kind people. I came from family from the South, very kind, very, you know, helping everybody come to the house. So you want to please people, you want to help people. There's nothing wrong with that, but there's also expectations that go with that as well, right? And then, but if someone just doesn't see you like that, it would kind of break. It would break, you know, me and stuff. Fast forward now, don't break. But you got to realize that, you know, sometimes I'm like, well, what's up with them or whatever. And I have to remember, you just don't know what people are going through. don't know, doesn't justify maybe what they said or the attitude or being salty or being whatever. And now you and your feelings, but we just don't know what people are going through. And that's such a humbling kind of thing. So you can't let that opinion that someone has of you dictate how you live your life and that power, right? So I continually read that. And I feel like now, I laugh because people are like, you're still so young. But last month, I turned 51. So when I turned 50, I don't know what happened. And my friend, some of my parents said it or whatever, but it's like, I just don't care anymore. Like, I'm gonna say what I'm gonna say, and it's gonna come out. I'm still gonna be kind of respectful, but I'm good. I'm good. And I'm not asking for permission. I just need you to know. And I love it. I love it. It's awesome. So no one wants to have people hate them or whatever. I think I'm a good person. I think I'm not perfect. I think I'm a good person. I think I try to do the best and I try to see the best in people. And that I have, a foundation of care and concern and love. And for those who can't see that, it's disappointing, but that's you, right? But you have to get to that point. It's not easy, and people spend a whole lifetime doing that. And that's still a struggle of mine, but I'm doing better. So I have been very fortunate in my life to have some wonderful, wonderful friends, amazing friends. There's a group of 6 of us from high school. We graduated in 1990. We are still tight. We get together every year. Our families are our friends. Some of our parents have passed, but they are people I've been very fortunate in my career, at all the places I went to school. Now in Washington, have met some wonderful, wonderful people. So when I read this, it's attributes of a good friend, it made me kind of think about folks. So attributes of a good friend: they feel like home. They are honest with you. I'll say that again. They are honest with you. They remind you of your power. They support you in your healing. They have a revitalizing presence. They hold a vision of your success. I love that. They support you in new adventures. They lift you up with joy and laughter, and they bring out the best version of you. So that's my criteria now. If people want to be my friend, you got to fit that criteria. If not,
And you're gonna tell them about it.
you got to go. Yeah, you missed number 8. I'm gonna need you to do number 8. You can't do number 8. I can't. Bye-bye. I can't do. So, be prepared to meet a new version of yourself every time you shed another layer of old trauma, conditioning, or hurt. As you let go, your perspectives and interests will shift. Transformation is natural as you travel the world to greater self-awareness, happiness, and peace. I think, as I said, as I've mentioned a couple of times, family is family. And, right, not too long before my dad passed and stuff, we had some falling out and with the family. And I'm so thankful that we were able to connect and be close at the very end. Because I don't know how I think that guilt would have eaten away at me, and that anger and that sense of loss. But it was that trauma, it was that hurt, it was years of not communicating or communicating in other ways. It was addressing your frustrations out on other things, right? It was dealing with a generation that didn't talk a lot. My parents, my parents didn't really express a lot of their feelings. That was them. Well, my sister and I are like, you gotta talk to me. Why don't you love me? So we had to realize that my parents grew up, it was work. At one point, each had 2 jobs. it was working. It was paying the bills. It was trying to support a family. And that's all they had the time for. And they did amazing with that. They were amazing parents. So while I don't have any kids of my own per se, I do now recognize the work and the many, many sacrifices they did and the trauma that they experienced as well, that I don't know if they do. Real courage is listening to your intuition, even when society and people in your life advise against it. A lot of advice comes from fear, people wishing you to stay with the herd and do the normal thing. Taking a calculated risk is not recklessness, it is fearlessness. I love this one because I think we can all, in one way or the other, think about a time when we wanted something or to do something. And we just have people that were like, no, you can't do that or whatever. The haters, right? The haters, they like to call them. And I remember two instances in my life where I was like, oh no, it's not gonna be like that. And I remember, and I brought this up actually, I think in my opening welcome, my first year here. But I had a high school counselor who I met with. And I was good academically. It wasn't great, but I was good. I was gonna get in some colleges. And he was like, you're not gonna get in anywhere. You're not gonna do that. I mean, you need, and this is when they perceived community colleges as a negative. I mean, you might be able to be at a community college, but I don't know, you might want to think about a trade. I mean, just all the stuff that goes into that, right? And, you know, I remember going home just devastated because I'm like, I have like an A- average, like I'm doing well, you know, and I'm at a private high school that's costing my parents, I don't even know how they're paying for it, you know, and they're happy. And I go home and my mom, and I'm dinner, I'm upset. My mom's like, what's going on? I tell her, and like I always joke, I'm like, I have a black mom. So then she was like, let's go to that school. So she's taking off the earrings, adjusting the wig. She was getting ready to go down and do some damage, right? I mean, that's real. That's real. And my dad's like, okay, Brenda, you gotta calm down. And she's like, that's my baby. And I'm gonna, you know, and so we talked as a family, and the support I got was just great. Said, you know, you can do what you want to do whatever you want to do. You know, we're here to support you. Just be kind about it, be respectful, and love people when you do that. So, like I said before, I graduated my high school, my undergrad, my master's, my PhD, and I gave him graduating announcement, sent it to his house all the time. I never talked to him after that, but I just sent it to him. You know, just be like, oh, okay, I'm approved to you. You know, but he also did that to some of my other friends, which was really interesting. But he didn't do it to all my friends. He only did it to select friends who look like him. So again, the messages, and as a 17-year-old kid who is trying to do the dream that everybody says, go to college and do this, and to get that kind of devastating information. And you think about the people that are scared to have the real courage, right? Because for that John Mosby, who had family, number one, who had a support system, that's already half the battle. But to decide to go this direction, there's 100 that didn't. So you always got to deal with the haters. Always got to deal with the haters. Other time was when I was a first year student in college. First year in college, and we were going around in class, and people said, "What did you want to be?" And I was there with some of my friends on my floor, and I said, "I want to be a college president." I knew I wanted to be a college president, 18 years old. I didn't know how the heck I was going to get there, but I wanted to be a college president. And half the class laughed. And my buddy Eric Dunphy, who lived next door, who I'm still good friends with, he's like, "I never laughed at you." So when I got it here, I posted it on social media, everything else. I got apologies from some of those people that I'm still close with. And my buddy Eric, he goes, "I knew you were going to do it. I knew you were gonna do it. But I was like, oh, you don't laugh at me? Oh, okay, we good, okay, we'll do it. So again, you don't want to spite people, but it's like, you don't know me, you don't know my story, right? But as long as you get to where you need to go, you gotta remember, you can't destroy people in your journey, in your path. You can't do that. So a few more. I have to remind myself about this every day. Actually, all day long. Let's stop treating each other like machines. It is okay if someone does not immediately respond to your email. Do not expect quick replies to every text message. The internet and social media has sharply increased the demands of your personal energy. Be a human and take your time. Young Pueblo was talking to me on that. I'm surprised he just to say, Mosby, be a human and take your time. Because the other day I was texting a good friend of mine, he was a college president in another state, and I had a question. And it had been 15 minutes. I want to reply back. So then I get one back the next day, and I'm like, what took you so long? And he's like, aren't you a president too? I ain't got time for you. So I got home. But and then I'm like, oh, I can't have all these emails. I gotta respond, can't do this, can't do that. And I just realized it's so exhausting, That's why I put the little signature on my thing, like if you get this email, because I know if I send an email, I know the power and privilege that comes with this position. And if I send an email to someone on campus, most likely they're gonna stop and answer it. And I don't want them to, and I have had people like fall over themselves, and I'm like, no, just when you can. So you have to put that on, you have to put that
I
disclaimer.
think you should add that below it.
But this one,
Below that on your signature line, you should add that. That would be beautiful.
you know what, I might do that.
Plus,
Might
plus,
do.
taking a calculated risk is not reckless experience.
Pueblo was talking to me, changing my life. For a few days, I lost my way and the past came roaring back, covering my eyes while old impulses took their chance to reign over my mind. I let myself get caught in the hurricane of yesterday, sampling my old home, remembering its walls and limits, feeling once again all of the reasons why I decided to move on. The joy was empty, and what was once fun fell flat. I could not live comfortably in a home too small for my recent expansion. I felt an immense wave of guilt for taking a few steps back. But then it hit me that re-experiencing those old patterns and ways of being was the motivation I needed to finally close the door and no longer feed the actions that can only lead me in circles. So I think about being a diabetic when I think about this. And I've been a diabetic. I'm 51, I've been a diabetic since I was 14, first year of high school, 37 years. And I think about some of my choices, some good ones, some not so good. I think about some of the habits I did and the food, and I'm so much better now as I got older and don't have a choice now, really. But I think about the old habits and getting in that circle. It's like being on a diet. You want to lose a few pounds, so you lose a few pounds, but then sometimes it comes back. So you're in this constant circle, right? And for me, it took, understanding those old patterns were kind of some of the reasons why I got sick. So for example, a little education note, diabetics, 75% of individuals with kidney failure are diabetics. So diabetes, hypertension, and kidney failure all run hand in hand. And then when you add certain communities in there as well, it just intensifies. So I was like the trifecta, right? So now at 49 or 40, whenever all that stuff happened, probably the best health of my life. The tests are great. My A1C, which is checks your diabetes, your blood sugar over 3 months, is the lowest it's been since I was a kid. But it took all these years. And that's me. And I can't dwell on it. I felt so guilty for a while, like I'm this failure, all this other stuff. But it's like, no. let me recognize what that is, and then let me move forward and take care of myself now, because there's other goals I want to achieve health-wise that I have to not be in a circular way of thinking. But losing your way is pretty easy to do. 3 signs of a good friend. You do not have to perform for them. They hold space for you during struggles. They are truly happy for your success. It has been one of the most hurtful things when you think you have a friend and you realize they're haters and they're sabotaging you, right? You know, and you're like, oh, I don't have time for this. And it hurts because sometimes it's the closest people to you, you think, you know, but the key is not getting jaded. But, you know, gonna celebrate your success as a plan for you. In many ways, a human being is a microcosm of the world. The conditioning that is accumulated over time within the mind parallels the system that has become dominant within human society. This is actually not what I was going to read. I'm going to read it. The reactive patterns of behavior that have been repeated and reinforced through our lives as individuals mirror the rigidity and slow change of society at large. Our minds are in large part the way they are because of the countless defensive reactions we have knowingly and unknowingly repeated. Like our minds, our world suffers from this pattern. Historically, people in positions of power have tended to act blindly, allowing past fear and trauma to inform their present. As those who have delved into inner work know, it takes time and self-awareness to break from the past. It takes the repetition of positive and nurturing behaviors that work against the flow of ignorance and fear more than anything. It takes intentional action that arises from self-awareness to break old habits that keep us from thriving. This process happens at the collective level too. People must think and feel together because they move into action against systems of harm. What I was going to read. The importance of self-love and self-acceptance in personal transformational work is critical. This is the energy that allows us to embrace ourselves completely and move forward with less friction into healthier ways of living. Similarly, humanity is currently experiencing an expansion of compassion. More individuals are recognizing that their love has limits, and we are working to expand it to include all people. Before healing takes place, the primary motivators of most human beings are craving and aversion. The accumulation of craving and aversion throughout history has formed the society we know today. All of this is held under a system of short-sighted, greed-based economics that threaten our ability to live well on our planet. Collectively, we have not yet learned how to accept our differences and treat them without fear, nor have we stopped trying to change and control each other. And we are still working on thinking long-term. It is undeniable that we can improve our current global situation to get to a better tomorrow. We must understand the complexity of today. The deeper understanding, the clearer actions. We must come to terms with history. Face it directly without turning away. We must examine where the shadows of history produce present-day oppression. If we can accept the present reality of human experience, we can better position ourselves to undo structures that do not serve the common good. The forces of racism and heteropatriarchy, exist on the interpersonal and structural level. They impact our institutions and insidiously slow down the flow of compassion in our minds. We need to question our current economic system and support a greater distribution of material prosperity. None of our systems will last forever. Nothing does. Starvation, poverty, lack of access to good schooling and healthcare are structural problems that we can overcome. Raising the standards so that people no longer suffer on the material level is not an impossibility. It is just a matter of will, collectively. We have the wealth and knowledge to accomplish this. What we are missing is a greater sense of unconditional compassion. Society will never be perfect, but that should not stop us from making our shared realities more humane. When we commit to ending harm and supporting one another's thriving, all individuals benefit.
My God. Oh, thank